Christ is king, it's where we belong. Stay with the dream, don't lose your way. Right way's the fire that'll light the day. Keep it simple, let the moment arrive. 3-8 trap keeps the hope alive. Hold on tight till the signal's near. Right way's the trail, we're breaking through fear.
Good morning, fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for May 30th, 2025, the last trading day of May. So, happy Friday, everyone. Let's take a look at what happened in this market overnight. Overnight, we have kind of an interesting morning setting up. The majority of Asian markets were lower last night. Only Australia managed to push some green out of their market, up about 25 points last night, while the Nikkei fell 467 points. India was down 82. South Korea was down about 23. Hong Kong fell 283 points, and Shanghai dropped about 16 points. We take a look at Europe this morning. Now, Europe's got a completely different opinion. European markets this morning are up 213 points in the DAX. The FTSE is up almost 67 points, and the CAC is up close to 23 points this morning. And then if we look over at the U.S. futures this morning, well, pretty much they're all down at the moment, and just modestly down, but kind of an interesting situation here to have such a mix. If we look at the Dow futures, down 15 points, the S&P 500 futures down $6.25, and the NASDAQ futures down 22.50. So just kind of bouncing around there around the flat line this morning with some uncertainty. So let's take a look at some other factors here in the market. If we take a look at cryptos this morning, we've got Bitcoin just slightly lower. Now, BITO is trying to pop back up, but we've got Bitcoin down at the moment, down $50 a coin. Little tiny move down for Bitcoin. And Ether is down, 31.25 per coin, or 1.18%. And we're right across the board in those cryptos this morning, but really modest moves on those. If we take a look at precious metals, however, we've got gold after a nice little rally yesterday. Gold is gapping lower this morning, right now down $24.50 an ounce. We've got silver also moving lower this morning. Silver in a really nice potential buy pattern here, but it's lower this morning, down almost 15 cents an ounce at $33.27 an ounce. Gold right now is at $3,320 an ounce. Copper this morning, just a very modest increase in copper this morning by about 1 cent. And we've got platinum and palladium just modestly lower. Platinum down $1.10, palladium down $4.60 an ounce. If we take a look at what we've got going on here in bonds this morning, well, a little bit of a mix in those bonds today as well. 2-year bond right now 3.94%. So that's certainly lower than yesterday, quite a bit lower. We were right up there around 5% yesterday, 4%. And we saw the 30-year bond yesterday topping 5%. Well, right now that's at 4.93%. And the 10-year bond coming in at 4.42. So relieving a little bit of that pressure. Interestingly enough, if we look at the U.S. dollar after a really big pop and drop day, yesterday in the U.S. dollar, we are holding a little bit of bullishness this morning, up 25 cents in dollar futures here today. Now, if we take a look at this, it's possible that's trying to hold this little upside trend, hold a little price support there in the chart. But boy, we've got to not get too excited about that because we're still in that downtrend. We're still below this resistance in the chart. If we look crossed over here, we've got resistance that we need to deal with in the chart. So dollar not the healthiest here at the moment. A little bit of uncertainty maybe here today. If we take a look at oil prices here this morning, we've got oil prices trying to move just a little bit higher. Here are the producers. They're trying to pick up a little tiny bit in those futures right now. Oil up 47 cents an ounce, or a barrel, at 61.43 a barrel. Brent crude this morning coming in around 64.48 a barrel, and natural gas is coming in just a tiny bit higher. Tried to hammer a little bit yesterday. This is a really interesting pattern in here, and very bearish overall. This little wedging pattern here, natural gas just continuing to struggle, but this morning up not quite 3.5 cents here this morning on natural gas. So what does all of that mean for the day? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Friday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thanks so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. I, like you, really glad it's Friday. It has been kind of a weird week, hasn't it, in the market. We've had lots of data that have come our way, but we really haven't got anything done. We're just doing an awful lot of resting here in the market, and perhaps that's the healthiest thing that we can do, because if we look at the diamonds here, there's nothing about this chart that's bearish. As a matter of fact, this nice little resting pattern in here, very, very bullish overall. And if we can find some bullish inspiration in here, well, then that possibility we could pop on through and get things going to the upside. Of course, if we do that as well, we see that possibility. Wedging patterns in the market have about a 50-50 shot of going to the upside or to the downside. So that possibility in here that we could go to the downside, we'll want to be keeping a pretty close eye on that. Now, looking at this chart, we also have a nice little area of price support right in here. So if the bears have anything to say today, then maybe a retest of yesterday's low. And if that were to break, that's probably where some concern is going to come up in the market. We could easily drop down into this area pretty quickly, and just knowing that those moves could be really fast and pretty big point moves if that were to occur. Now, if the bulls find inspiration here today and we bounce up off of this area here, well, you can see right in there, that's that area we need to break to push on through. If we can push on through there, then I think there's every reason to believe we're back up here, maybe testing these recent highs in the market. Now, technically in the chart, still trying to break our way through that 200-day moving average. We're holding above the 50-day. Obviously, we've got a lot of work here to get these moving averages on the right side of each other, but they're trying to hang in there pretty strongly, even though we are essentially overextended in the short term here in the market. We'll look at that in just a second. If we take a look at our SPY, well, our SPY and QQQ, probably the strongest stocks, because big tech is dominating everything here in the market. But again, we have a very, very bullish pattern in here. There's nothing about this that is bearish at the moment. We did come in with maybe a little bit of a dark cloud cover pattern there yesterday on the SPY, But if the bulls can continue to maintain this inspiration in here and hold this area in here, then I think that possibility that we could push right on through this area and come right up here and test some of these recent highs and see if they can stretch that even higher with a little bit of inspiration. If, however, the bears were to find some inspiration in some of the data today, then that possibility of breaking this area of support, and I think a retest maybe back down in here, could then be likely. That's a fairly big point move. Where the real concern would come, I think, in the market is if we dropped enough to fill this gap. So watch that carefully here if the SPY makes that move. Again, technically here, holding above our 200-day, a retest of the 200-day would not be out of the question at all and probably not hurt anything other than it's a fairly big point move for the market if that were to come down and retest that 200. Now, I'm going to say the same thing about the QQQ, except the QQQ is the most overextended of the indexes in here, really stretched to the upside. If the bulls can continue to find inspiration in here, and by the way, again, a very bullish chart, dark cloud cover, bearish engulfing in there yesterday on the QQQ. But if the bulls can find inspiration here, maybe we can pop back up out of that bear candle and see if we can break through this resistance area in the chart. And if we do, I think that possibility that we start pushing on higher and maybe moving on up to try and get through some of these highs in the QQQ certainly look like a possibility. If the bears, however, have anything to say, if we were to follow through from that bearish engulfing and push back, well, we've got some support right in here that looks like we could test pretty easily and catch this upside trend at the same time. If we push beyond that, I think that's where a little bit of worry or concern would come in. I see a possibility of testing this area. That could happen quickly, and then the real worry is if we drop to fill that gap, which would be a pretty painful pullback overall. Now, if we look at that technically, that would be just a pullback to the 200-day moving average or in that vicinity, and you could certainly see that as a possibility here in the chart. And I say the most overextended because we're the most elevated above that 200-day here in the QQQ. And then if we take a look at our IWM, well, the old Russell in here, you can see we've got an upside trend. Again, that very bullish pattern in here. Unfortunately, with the Russell, we have a couple other things going on. I'll show you in just a second. But if the bears were to have anything to say in here, well, pushing down from there wouldn't be a major surprise, and we could retest this area down in here in the chart, I think fairly easily with a bearish push. If the bulls have anything to say, well, first we need to break through this little area of price resistance, and maybe we can come up and test this area here in the chart. Unfortunately, on the technical side here in IWM, we're still struggling with this major area of price resistance across over here, and I think as long as tech continues to garner all the attention, it's going to really be tough for IWM to gain a whole lot of attention here overall. So still dealing with this major downtrend, price resistance area, so we've got that double whammy of resistance. Any kind of a pullback in here, it would be pretty normal if we were to pull back and retest that 500-day. It's where we would break down and maybe even come back toward this 50-day that would probably add some worry in the market. Let's take a look at our VIX. Our VIX here that yesterday ended up pushing just a little bit higher. We dropped pretty good in there. Now we've got that VIX pushed up just a little tiny bit. We're trying to hold this area of the chart with that little bit of selling that came in there on big tech yesterday, raising just a little bit of concern, but not so much as to really add any kind of fear or panic to the market. Just a little bit of lift there. If the bears continue to find inspiration here, well, maybe we push up here, see if we can test that area of resistance, and pushing through there, maybe right back up here to this area of the chart if the bears do anything in activity. If the bulls have any energy here today, well, that possibility that we could just rest right back down, test this right back down in here, and then a good strong move to the upside. Maybe we press on lower here in our VIX. Our T2122, this is where I point out that we're kind of in that overbought situation here in the market. Now, not as bad as we have had been, but as we pushed up yesterday, we really didn't have any breadth pushing that to the upside. So you want to watch that carefully. This is the kind of thing when we squeeze up and we don't have any breadth, we get that opportunity of the whipsaw or that pullback that comes in the market. So watch carefully in here. If the bulls can find inspiration here, watch for that opportunity they can push on up. We've got some room here for them to get into the very overly extended area in the T2122. If the bears have anything to say, well, we just need to notice that we have a big opportunity for the bears if they have something to say here in the market. And then if we take a look at our T2108, percentage of stocks above the 40-day, popped up yesterday, pushed back up. We didn't have enough energy to push up here into these recent highs. And keep in mind here in T2108, when we reach up here toward those 70 areas of T2108, we're reaching that area where we're pretty frothy, meaning that just about everybody's in that's going to be in, and we're starting to run or struggle with more inspiration for buying here at the moment. So watch that carefully in T2108. But we've got resistance up there if the bulls can keep pushing. If the bears were to push back, well, you can see we've got some support levels in here in the chart. Nothing major to worry about. About 64% of the stocks holding above their 40-day moving average. Our T2107, obviously a lot of stocks. We see the 200-day moving average underneath the 50-day, above the 50-day moving average. And so we still have 33% of the stocks below their 200-day moving average. We'll want to be keeping a close eye on that. Also, good resistance up here if the bulls can push. Nice support down here if the bears have anything to say in the chart. So watch that carefully here. And our T2101, what I meant yesterday is as we were trying to show that bullishness here in the market, in the index as well, our breadth just wasn't showing us much of anything. We're just flat, slightly lower. Not much going on there in breadth. It just wasn't following along. I think maybe what we have is just that market's a little bit overextended in the short term. And it doesn't have to be overextended a lot, just a little bit. And maybe the market's just a little bit tired. Just a little bit tired and wants to rest a little bit. And that's one of those things that I think a lot of the market fears if we just go into a longer term consolidation, choppy zone in the market, because it gets a little bit boring and can get a little bit stale. But watch that carefully. Let's take a quick look at our economic calendar here for today. And our economic calendar is where we're probably going to get the majority of our inspiration for the day. We've got international trade in goods here this morning. They're looking for a negative $143 billion. We know this is what the president is trying to repair, but it's not happening very quickly here, and I wouldn't expect it to. The last time it was a negative 162, so this would be quite an improvement on a 1 month basis. Keep an eye on that. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if this is a miss and this international trading goods number is worse than consensus is expecting. Let's take a look here on personal incomes and outlays. Now, this is the Fed's favorite number here, and we're seeing declines. Despite all the fear-mongering that tariffs are going to raise inflation. We certainly haven't seen it yet. Can it raise inflation? Yeah, absolutely. But we just haven't seen it here yet in the numbers. Personal incomes, this is probably going to be the biggest hurt in this number today. If this is true, personal income dropping from a 0.5 to a 0.3. That's going to be a little bit worrisome for the consumer. And then that the personal consumption expenditures declining from a 0.7 to a 0.2. We're seeing the stress in those consumers. Now, if we take a look at the PCE index showing a 0.1%, increasing from 0.0, the year over year number actually declining to 2.1% from a 2.3. The core number consensus is suggesting month over month a 0.1 increase as well, and then year over year suggesting a decline to 2.5%. So we'll want to watch that closely. This is a number that we often key in on, and that would suggest if the number does come in like that, that overall inflation is declining. So watch that carefully here today. I don't know how the market will respond to that. Overall, we've got retail inventories, wholesale inventories. We've got a Chicago PMI that they're expecting to come in just a little bit better, from a 44.6 to a 45. Remember, anything that's below 50 means that our PMI is in contraction still, so watch that carefully today. We've got consumer sentiment. They're looking for that to improve here to a 52. And I can certainly see, with the market being as bullish as it is, how that could even be a little bit better than what consensus is expecting. So watch that closely here. This is still a very low consumer sentiment. What's going to be interesting is to see if they still have that same impression that the year ahead inflation expectations going up to 7.3%, because we're certainly not seeing inflation increase like they, all the talking heads and things said was going to occur. All the fear mongering on that just hasn't played out at the moment. Maybe it does here in the future, but we'll want to watch that closely. If we take a look, we've got Bostic speaking in here, Baker Hughes rig count, we've got the farm prices, and daily will be in there after the bell today. Daily Goolsby, and on Sunday we've got Waller speaking out there. So that's your news for the day. And on the economic or earnings calendar, there just isn't much going on here. In fact, I kind of added a couple in here that really aren't that particularly notable, but we've got CGC that will be reporting today. We've got Shoe Carnival here, SCVL, and Tiger will be reporting. Let's take a quick look at those. CGC has been in a very bullish upside pattern here. Watch that carefully here. If those earnings happen to come in strong or good, might see that opportunity, that bullish break here to the upside on CGC. SCVL in here. Looks like we're trying to catch a little tiny pop. This has obviously been in a very bearish downtrend here. Little bit of an upside trend coming into quite a little bit of price resistance here. We'll want to watch that carefully here today. And TIGR, again, not particularly notable, but something to watch in here, trying to hold some support. Been moving down here in quite a pullback after this long run to the upside. So just watch that carefully here for today. Let's take a look at a few stocks. And by the way, there is no notables in after the bell today. Just kind of wrapping up the end of this month. Not a tremendous amount of inspiration. It'll be mostly in news events today that could provide that inspiration. So let's take a look at some of these stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me that quick favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, please click that subscribe button on YouTube and also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find that the video is worthy, please do me that favor and click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment. Remember, everyone, even emoji counts with engagement in the video. And just a big thank you to everyone who just grabs that link of the video and shares it on your social media feed. That helps an awful lot. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to do that. I really appreciate it. Let's take a peek at some of these stocks that could be setting up for today. Remember, everyone, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence and be very, very careful in this market. Anything is possible here, and from this choppy place, we could pop up hard real fast, we could break down hard real fast. So just make sure you have a plan to protect yourself here in the market. One of the things that I saw was interesting yesterday, and although many of these are not in great buy points, we saw at the end of the day, we saw defensive sector stocks starting to push up. Now, I don't know if we've got an institutional rotation that might be coming in, but Campbell Soup popped up. We saw Hershey popping up. We saw Colgate popping up. We saw quite a few of these defensive sector stocks starting to catch a little bit of a bid yesterday. Now, whether that's a rotation, I don't know. I think it'd be too early to tell on that because these are still in bearish patterns. But that being said, there were also quite a few that aren't so bearish patterns, like Mondelez pushing up in here. We saw Altria getting a little bit of a boost yesterday and possibly a higher low, trying to stretch on out for some of these highs. And one of the reasons you can see this occurring is the big dividend payments that these make. You might watch some of these in case that rotation does happen and we do start to sell off. Things like Moe, things like Philip Morris might be a place to put some money to camp out just a little bit if we do pull back in the market. Now, other places to be looking at, we have such a mix here in oil sector stocks. I really think ExxonMobil looks like it could be setting up short here. There's our downtrend. There's our price resistance. We broke the support. We rallied back, tested resistance in there. Watch this for that possibility of that rollover here to the downside. I'm going to say the same for like ConocoPhillips. You can see Conoco pushing back up into that resistance, moving in this downtrend. Look for that possibility that could fade, roll on over here to the downside. So there are a few things out here showing that uncertainty, and that we just have to be pretty careful here on some of these. But at the same time, boy, we've got some nice charts out there that are continuing to hold in the bullishness. Now, unfortunately, yesterday Rivian had a pretty hard sell here on that move, but I want to point out kind of did the same thing right there on the chart and then got the reversal. So watch this carefully in here. Rivian may still have that opportunity. Pop up and tag my alert in there. Watch carefully on that. PayPal has been setting up a nice bullish platform here, a nice bull flag in that chart. Little rest back here on this support. It has slipped past its trend, but I'm watching in this if we can get any kind of a bullish move, that possibility that could push on through on that. Take a look at Twilio. Very bullish pattern hanging in here on support, just looking for that to pop and make that move through to the upside. Watch that closely. And there are a lot of stocks doing that kind of thing. Dollar Tree looking really, really good. One of the things that's been kind of surprising to me is the strength in some of the retail, and particularly discount retail has been pretty strong. So Dollar Tree looking really good, and I think may have that opportunity to continue to fill this gap right in here up to this next area of resistance in the chart. We've got Dollar General in there, had a nice little resting pullback after breaking through some resistance. If we can hold in this area in here, we could reestablish that upside trend someplace in here and maybe stretch on up and start working to see if we can fill this giant gap here in Dollar General. So watch that carefully. Five Below has been really strong as well, showing lots of bullishness here in the market. We've got Walmart hanging in there, looking pretty good. Of course, Costco reporting earnings yesterday, a little bit of a disappointment there, so that could have a negative impact on Walmart today, but watch that carefully here in Costco. Just didn't get that inspiration yesterday that I think a lot of folks were hoping for on that retail side, so keep an eye on that. DKNG. Now, DKNG fell below its trend in here. Drifted lower, but you can see trying to pick back up. You might want to keep an eye on that. If that can hold in here and pop out, might be an interesting one to pay attention to. Take a look at some of the miners out there. Although we have seen some bearishness in precious metals, the miners are continuing to show some strength. The GDX, nice little bullish pattern in here, resting in that consolidation. Watch for that possibility if that finds that bullish inspiration where that could push on through to the upside. Some of those miners looking decent out there. Some of the credit cards trying to hold up in here. Watch that carefully here. MasterCard pulled back to find this support. We still have this resistance to deal with in here. If this rests in here just a little bit, look for that opportunity that might pop through. Saw Visa doing basically the same thing here in the market. BKNG. Nice little stretch here to the upside, continuing to move up. This little 3-day rest that we've had in here might just find that inspiration to push us on higher out of there, so keep an eye on those. And there's a lot more stocks to look at, and there are quite a few that are giving us a little bit of that negative vibe here as well, that possible rollover, so kind of keep that in mind. So with that, everyone, hey, I want to wish you all a fantastic day. I want to wish you great results in your trading. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for supporting the channel. All of your kind comments, I really appreciate it. Y'all take care. Be safe. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you right back here bright and early Monday morning. As always, I wish you all the very best.
Black and white candles, my stars in the dark. Price is my king, got that fire and spark. Rideways my ranch on the trader's trail. Trading with heart where the profits prevail.